So now that Pokemon Legends ZA has been out for a couple of weeks, I wanted to make a quick video about just like the response, the negativity about it, just like the Pokemon franchise really as a whole and what's going on, in my opinion, there. And I think that if you're like me, who grew up with the first couple of generations of Pokemon, where you can still find some of that magic still today. So my good friend, the YouTube algorithm, for like the past 2 weeks, I want to say, has been sending me nothing but videos about Pokemon Legends ZA, and pretty much just how like it's full of half-baked ideas, how rushed that the game still comes off as, and just how much it's just not worth your time and your money in general seems to be like the common thing. And before I get started talking about it, I'll let you know straight out, I am a lifelong Pokemon fan, but I didn't keep up with the games once they made the leap to the Switch, just purely because I don't own a Switch. But I think you don't need to own the games, that you can look up some of the examples of what people are complaining about, So if you look up, you have like this big open city that seems to have a lot of buildings that you would expect in a modern game that you could enter, but you can't. Plenty of cutscenes that, feel kind of awkward because like they should have dialogue in them, but they kind of like, they still play out as if they did, and they just stay silent. So I'm going to also say that there are for sure fair criticisms and complaints about these games. I think for me, I just wanted to offer the perspective of like, hey, there's a reason why all this keeps happening with the newer Pokemon games. I think overall, pretty much the primary reason, like if you have the same background as me, is it boils down to that the Pokemon games are just different now. Like they're not for you. Gaming audiences have changed, the developers behind the games have changed. Really, the world overall has changed. And so the Pokemon games also have conversely changed how they do things, which results in different games, and that's okay. And so again, I think I wanted to start off with kind of my background or whatever. Here's my credentials, my nerd creds. I started off actually with the 3rd generation. So my first game that I ever played was Pokemon Sapphire, if you don't count the gold version that I would borrow off my neighbor every now and then. And it was funny, like I didn't actually own like a legitimate copy. I got it at the swap meet, where like the actual game cart was not the fun blue color that Sapphire is supposed to be. But it just goes to show you that if there's something in the Pokemon series that you feel like is like different or missing or whatever, the chances are that I probably also miss it or have the same complaints that you do. And sure enough, as time continued and I saw the games after, because my favorite gens honestly are 3 to 5. So once I started seeing the games take that leap into the 3D, I did also start seeing like the vibe of them shift. I think I've always been, like I don't look at things super analytically, but I do have like a lot of like comfort in my own taste in games. So even I was able to see like, oh, okay, like this leap to 3D is gonna start like changing a couple things, huh? You know how Gen 1 fans are Gen 1ers, so I don't know if there's one for Gen 3 people, but Gen 3er, but it's totally like one of my favorite gens for sure, the 3rd generation. And when I first started playing the 3D games, it was a bit of like, I did feel that disconnect, but I was also able to look at the positives. Like I remember when I first sat down to play X and Y, just being mind blown, like I could move around in full 3D, and like they even had the fast movement with the roller skates instead of the bike to take advantage of that. Browsing, funnily enough, topic of the video, Lumio City for the first time, even though it was like mostly like flashiness, right? It was like mostly buildings versus like a properly huge city that you could really, really dig into. It was still enough there that I was like mind blown walking around a fully 3D city in a Pokemon game. And then after that, I also remember like playing the Alpha Sapphire remakes, being able to like see the differences between one of my favorite gens, the quality of life stuff, what they fixed, what they decided to keep. Flying around the entire Hoenn region on a Lati Twin was just like chef's kiss, pure peak Pokemon-ness. And then the last gens that I was involved in, even the Sun and Moon series, I could appreciate just how they laid out the region. It was a little bit hand-holdy, but it was still nice that despite being on that really fast development cycle, they were still going out of their way to like, okay, well, we're going to try something like a little bit different, you know, like instead of gym leaders, we've got the island challenges, and we've had little differences and things. We've got, I think this is the first one that did regional variants, got totem Pokemon as bosses. There's lots to love, because you could tell that they weren't trying to stray too far from the formula to keep people happy, but just enough to keep things just interesting and fresh. I think one complaint I see about ZA, really just like the Switch games in general, that I don't really have a rebuttal for, because I do agree with them in a sense, is that the games feel like they're now very rushed. Like they don't get the time and the resources that they really should have been getting, but especially now with like the games have more moving parts and fully 3D, they really should be getting now. Which is kind of funny, because like, you know, based on like this amount of detail in the pixel art and the region design, and just how like intricate in a different way that the 2D games, the first few generations were, it feels like Pokemon's always been like in some kind of crunch mode. Like those gens couldn't have been too easy to make either. But I think now, like the trade-offs that they had to make for those 2D games, like there's more moving parts again now in the 3D ones. So now that the trade-offs that they've always had to make in order to get things done fast is just more glaringly obvious, because it's a Nintendo franchise. So you get to compare it to like it's like contemporaries, right? You compare it to the new Zelda games or the new Mario games, and it's kind of like, well, what the heck? What's going on with Pokemon? And it's a shame, because here's kind of like the meat of what I wanted to get into. I think what we see coming from Pokemon games now is a result of these trade-offs, and it is partly, of course, you know, like development time and resources, I'm sure, like, and I'll get into that into a bit, but I think too, just in general, it comes from a place of like just changing audiences, I think. And you know, I will give you this perspective. Like if you think of the word gamer, like, okay, like I'm sure like usually people would traditionally think of gamer as like shy, nerdy, whatever stereotype you want to think of. But when I was growing up as a kid in the 2000s, we didn't really have that. I think people that wanted to play video games kind of fell into two camps, where it was either like you had something that you were just super into, like gameplay wise, it was just fun. There's a lot of like Tetris kids and stuff like that growing up. Or you just wanted to go into like this cool world to get away and sink your imagination into for a little bit, which is typically what kids my age were into, whether it was like the nerds, the jocks, the girls, the boys, your aunt that called every Pokemon Pikachu. Pretty much when I was growing up, everyone liked Pokemon. And if you were a gamer, you were likely, like that was probably going to be like your main thing that you were into. So imagine trying to like define, I guess, a gamer with kids today. It seems like that's like kind of almost impossible. Like everything's been just so blurred that there's no real way. It was already kind of blurring when I was a kid. So there's no real way, I think, like to imagine like it's the same audience that is like buying these games, or the same audience really that comprises gamers today. Most kids, honestly, like most people tend to game on their phones to begin with, which is funny because that reminds me of like this like Masuda quote. That's the guy who was in charge of the series for a little bit. I think it was around the time they first got into some heat, when they decided that, well, you're not going to be able to catch every Pokemon anymore, because if you logistically think about it for like longer than 10 seconds, it would be probably impossible to continuously model and put 1,000 little critters into your game every 2 years. But obviously that's not what they said. What they ended up saying was that basically like audiences are changing, and a lot of the decisions that they're going to make now for Pokemon games are going to be from that angle of like, okay, well, I think kids are not, like they would prefer things a little bit more simplified, a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more, lack of a better term, kind of handed to them, not so complicated. And that's not me saying every kid is like, you know, brain rot, dopamine addicted or whatever. Like, you know, kids today are very sharp. One thing we have to be conscious of when it comes to Pokemon is that it's a series meant for kids. And if we care about the longevity of the series, then it still has to kind of like appeal to that demographic. going back to like the whole like terms changing, right? It's like, okay, so imagine before Pokemon started in the 90s, right? Before that, I can't tell you what it is offhand, but I'm sure kids of that generation had their own hype cycle for whatever their Pokemon was, and it's probably gone or not as popular as it is now. And so same with us and Pokemon. Like, I'm 30, so when I first played Gen 3, I was like 10. And I, like us, the people that like are adults now, still following the series, still putting a lot of money into the series. So the trading card game is any indicator, but we can't sell our nostalgia to the next generation. So if we want to see our favorite series continue to do great things, you know, at the end of the day, it is a business, and they do have to like continue to figure out how to grow that, you know. If they keep trying to solely appeal to us, that would be great in the short term. But again, like our fondness for this series, our fondness for the Pokemon, kids don't have that. Like there's so much competition from like the internet and like, you know, streaming sites and other games, and it's just different, you know, and then that's all right too. The Pokemon series, as you know, it tends to operate on like cycles, right? It's like you get the new main series every 2 to 3 years or so, which is an insane turnout even for when they were back in the two-dimensional days, with like maybe a spin-off or a remake in between that cycle. And so it's easy to say that yes, they do need more time and resources or whatever, but bear in mind that it's similar to how it was when we were first kids. When Pokemon was still starting out and figuring it out, they were a new franchise, they were able to take, I think, more risks without worry of messing up some sort of humongous system that they have to worry about now. Because being a big media empire now, it means that, you know, whatever decisions they make that result in like 1 or 2 really bad moves, 1 or 2 really bad games, I guess, in this case, could mean affecting like people that work, okay, like if you think of Pokemon, like you have people working on the anime, you've got people working in the retail stores, the Pokemon Center and all that, social media people, every single logistical thing that you need in a business, people that work on the trading cards, people that work on the games, like they all need like, you know, like to maintain their livelihood, their benefits. And so when you try to like make these things that you think are going to appeal to like less of a broad audience, right? Which is us adults. Like we've been with the series for a while and we know better than anyone what we want from the series, which is why you hear so many complaints, is because we just love it so much. But, you know, like imagine suddenly you try to shift, like say the development cycle, you suddenly decide on a whim, like, okay, maybe we do need more time and now we're gonna change this on a whim to be, or heck, maybe not even on a whim, but just changes to be like a different development cycle when it's like now, or it's like we got to go get this cleared because the people that are making the anime have already like started production 9 months ago, and the people making the trading cards started production 6 months ago, and we've got all these promotional things, like McDonald's is going to get mad at us again. So hopefully I'm not coming off like too rambly here. I think I'm just trying to make the point that it's such a huge machine now, Pokemon, that the idea, at least for me, you know, because I'm not like, I don't have any experience running a humongous like company like the Pokemon company, nor am I a game developer, nor am I involved in any of these like, you know, positions. I do know a little bit about creating and about creativity, and I can say pretty comfortably, like when they were younger, when they were less, you know, things to carry on your back, I'm sure Gamefreak was able to like really focus on the smaller details and making the worlds more expansive and that kind of stuff in a short amount of time, which is where I think the original crunch came from. But now that it's such a big machine, any sort of decision that they make could mean affecting like 1,000 tiny little different things. It's almost literally like what the games run into now. Like now that they're so big, 3D and complex, it's like, damn man, like if we change anything in the code, it could suddenly mean 17,000 bugs right before we have to ship that we have to address. So those are like my overall points, I think, about the new games, especially with regards to what happened with Legends EA. It's like, okay, Pokemon is just such a huge multi-billion-dollar machine that any sort of little tweak or adjustment they make to how they work with things, it's not like the old days where you like risk and artistic expression was rewarded while they were figuring it out. No, now it affects like 1,000 things. But that also too is that like they have to continue to grow in order to make these great things that we love, like the animated shorts on the Pokemon YouTube. Love those things, they're awesome. But to get more cool stuff like that, they have to make sure that they're also still growing as a company, which also involves catering to changing tastes, which is to say, like, you can't just tell the next generation how cool Pokemon is. You know, they also have to get their own core memories formed from it. Like Pokemon has to make sure that they also are appealing to them, which is good. You know, it should be directed towards kids first and foremost, I think. I did also want to talk about like, okay, well, you know, things are different and stuff has changed. Is there a place where I could maybe get some of that old magic, something that's not so like how it is now, more like how it used to be? Well, I wanted to talk about that too, because actually this is what helped a lot of this click into perspective for me. Because again, first game was Sapphire, right? Pokemon Sapphire. So I'm sure if you have the same background as me, you're pretty familiar with like how it goes to catching the Reggie trio in the Hoenn region. I'll give you a quick explanation. It's just this whole last process. You're basically solving puzzles in the overworld to unlock locations to catch legendary Pokemon in Sapphire. So for the Reggie specifically, you essentially have to go off of, I think, there's like this underwater spot where your Pokemon dives under the water, I want to say on Route 131 or something like that. And you get led into this cave with a bunch of strange dot writing on the wall when you check it out. So at the next chance that I got, which was probably like at like a bookstore, like a Borders or something like that. But I just remember at the store flipping through the pages of the strategy guide for Ruby and Sapphire, and then finding out that, oh, okay, like the dot language inside of the cave is Braille. And the first cave that you get is actually just straight out the alphabet for the Braille language, just listing each letter in order. So that actually blew my mind as a kid, just goes to show you. And then it actually motivated me to write out in my little notepad each letter and their corresponding English letter, I guess, for Braille in order, which meant that like I was now able to go to the other caverns in the game and figure out what the messages on the wall were saying. Now, granted, some of them were like nonsense. Like, I'm pretty sure I still use the strategy guide for that whole first comes Wailord, last comes Relicanth nonsense, because it's worded really weird even once you translate it in the game. But this, I think, even kind of strengthens the idea of like, I think audiences were just different, because the idea of like, you know, getting your pen and notepad to be able to translate some Braille language in the game for something that's optional, something you don't have to do to complete the game. I think that's just my own background. Again, I'm 30. I grew up with like puzzle games and like humongous entertainment point and clicks. So I actually did get a lot of satisfaction of, you know, jotting down Braille and figuring out what the messages were asking of me and getting like a really cool prize in return. And that's just, I think, like, goes to show you the taste at the time of kids playing games back then. Because if you think about it, like, okay, without the internet, and again, I'm just talking just taste-wise here, not intelligence. I'm not saying kids today are dumb, not at all, the opposite. But I think, imagine like you're a game developer and you have limited amount of time. The games come out on like 2 to 3 year cycles at the most. It's like, would you put this amount of detail and effort into designing cool puzzles and like side content like this for kids that, again, maybe may not be so interested in that? Because, you know, today kids have their attention, like there's so many things competing for kids' attention now that just taste-wise, it may not be worth the effort for you as a game dev to put into the newer Pokemon games what they used to put into the first few generations. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a game developer again, or someone with like years of experience in this industry, but this kind of stuff that makes you think like, just pouring more time and resources into these games alone makes me think that that's not going to solve all of the issues that people have. If you are looking for that magic, because again, I hope I've kind of established that, okay, the newer Pokemon games, they're just different. They're different. They have different tastes they have to cater to. It's a bigger machine. They have way more, to keep in mind when they make these games now. Can you still find some of that original spark elsewhere? I would say yeah, because what helped this all click into place for me was the Pokemon fan hacking community. There's a specific ROM hack I wanted to talk about called Pokemon Pisces. So in Pisces, just to give like a general quick overview of it, Pisces is basically like, imagine it's a sequel to Pokemon Emerald. And so being a sequel, it takes place 5 years after the events of the original game, which in between both games, like a bunch of stuff has happened, including just like the entire Hoenn region being completely like terraformed. It's basically a brand new region, even though you get echoes of what it used to look like. It's an entirely fresh experience, especially because they made a bunch of fake Pokemon for the region. So instead of encountering like the Hoenn classics, you'll encounter mostly, I would say like 90% original Pokemon that the developers made themselves. And so Pisces, like overall, like I will say I very much enjoyed it. And I will talk, I think the way I'll organize it is I talked about what I liked first and then kind of get into like some gripes I had with it that will hopefully help explain the point I have leading up after that. But again, all of the fake Pokemon, some of the best I've seen in any fan hack ever. Usually the designs for fake Pokemon come off as pretty cringy. That's not the case here. The story, it was interesting enough to, like, that it was like the idea that it's a sequel and stuff. It was interesting enough that I really wanted to just keep going and find out what happens at the very end. Even though it takes place in the Hoenn region, there's so much that has changed that it honestly comes off feeling like a brand new, completely new region, even though it's still technically Hoenn, Fanhack Hoenn or whatever, but still Hoenn. And there's a lot of things they did to really freshen the like battling experience 100% too. Because the battles in Pokemon games, I mean, again, because they have to appeal to kids, which if you noticed, even the battling in the newer Pokemon games has been a little bit simplified, a little bit dumbed down for good reason. But in Pisces, they really went out of their way to keep things fresh. There's new abilities, new moves. There's a new type even. And so it's a lot of pleasant little surprises and stuff in Pisces. But conversely, I feel like there's lots of things that really frustrated me about it too as well. Like, yes, the region is like brand new and it's real cool to see how things have changed compare, but then there's also lots of areas that just kind of felt like unfairly gated off or like just invisible walls all over the region or stuff that just didn't quite make any sense. And so it was kind of like, okay, there's that. Writing wise, I mean, the story was interesting, but just there's a lot of returning characters from Emerald that like I feel like badly characterized, and it was kind of cringy at certain points to writing. So it was kind of like, okay. And then my biggest gripe, I think, overall was they did a lot to freshen the battling in it. Which is cool because it gives it like sequel vibes. This is a sequel to Pokemon Emerald, so changing the actual gameplay and the mechanics is a big one. But they changed so much, like even like the actual type matchups, which is something that's pretty universal. If you're a Pokemon fan, like you can pick up any Pokemon game, and if you know what's weak to what and what resists what, you should have a pretty straightforward time with the battling system. But they made a lot of weird changes where it's like stuff that I wouldn't have even considered. Like, I think off the top of my head, I remember like Steel doesn't resist Psychic anymore and stuff like that, which is cool. It can make for an interesting experience. But aside from like NPCs and stuff, like there's no real easy way to access any of this info. So like between that and then like the new status conditions, the new type, like sometimes I would just have matches where it was like more of a guessing game than it was like, putting in the actual strategy into it. Not to mention that in Pokemon games, usually the more challenging battles tend to be like gym leaders and freaking like the Evil Team, Elite Four, and stuff like that. But in Pisces, because again, this is made by people that also grew up with the third generation of games. I think it's no coincidence that most fan hacks are third gen. But just to make it interesting, like they made every single trainer fight a double battle almost, and most of them got some type of strategy going on to them. And so there's just so much, and it's just so overwhelming at some points. Like I really wanted to continue the story and progress, and see the final evolutions of my fake Pokemon. But it just got so exhausting at some points, and like every route had to be like a whole mission, just to get through the battle. And it was just kind of like, okay. So lots of great stuff about this hack. I can see exactly like where they're coming from. This is like something that completely appeals to me. Like I was the audience for this game for sure. But then there was so much too that was like what is kind of going on here? Like I hadn't really wasn't too into it, but I was able to respect it. I did have problems with this fan hack. Like I wasn't like in love with everything, even though overall it was a very positive experience. But like I was still able to respect their choices. The developers had a vision, and I could tell who they were trying to appeal to, who they were going for, and whether I agree with their decisions or not, I was able to respect their artistic, I guess, integrity about it, and didn't feel like this fan hack didn't feel like it was made like how the newer stuff is. Like it wasn't a bunch of decisions made by a committee, or like we have to like make sure that we're appealing to everyone, because that's just like kind of like how it goes, I think, when you're a franchise under Nintendo. And to bring it full circle, I wanted to talk about the specific thing from Pisces. There's a throwback to the Braille puzzles, like the Reggie stuff from Generation 3. So I'll try to be a little bit vague about it, so in case you're interested in checking out Pisces, you can discover it for yourself. But Pisces has also this place it's not mandatory, it's kind of out of the way if you explore the world, but there's a spot where you can dive, and you also see similar writing on a wall in like dots and dashes and stuff like that, which I didn't know what that meant, but thankfully there's an NPC that explains that there's like a hidden Morse code place, like section of the game where you can find Morse code, whatever. And when I discovered that, I was like, well, this has to be the spot for sure. So like, let me see what's good. Unfortunately, they're like unlike the Generation 3 games, like there was no place where the Morse code alphabet was just available. So I actually genuinely like had to go out of my way to go on the internet, go find a Morse code translator, try to type in what it was saying in the game into the translator, sorry. Calculators are for numbers. And I just couldn't get it to say anything legible because it just displays really weirdly in the game. And then at some point I finally just got I was already kind of like frustrated. I was kind of like, well, maybe I would like this as a kid, but honestly, like I kind of just wanted you to give me the thing, because I discovered it already, which again, I think it might be further evidence to support like that taste change, regardless of demographic or whatever. But I was like, I discovered the thing. It's not working. Like I figured out what you have to do. I'm just gonna look up what it says from people talking online, and your reward for it is pretty cool. Like you actually get to go into like this area that you definitely wouldn't have discovered otherwise, and you find like this exclusive like fake Pokemon that you can only find there, which I think perfectly summarizes how I feel about this fan hack, where there's like so much cool stuff going on, but I could tell that not everyone is going to be into this, and I can tell that also like everything's just trade-offs at the end of the day. Which, if you're interested in a more in-depth talk about Pisces, let me know in the comments down below. I definitely would be down to talk about that or any of the other fan hacks I played today. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that if you find yourself frustrated, or it's kind of like, okay, like, Pokemon games are different then, so where can I get more of what I grew up with? Just know that, like, similar like what Sonic Mania, I guess, did for the Sonic series, like, it's all there. Like, it's all out there. There's people that are also very passionate about the series, that have your exact background, that are out there giving it their crack at it, because they recognized, I think, that just like anything else in this world, that Pokemon had to change. Which isn't to say the main series can't be like fixed, or like it can't make changes or improvements that maybe might hit more of a sweet spot for everyone. But I think similarly to how I was like, okay, I can see, like even with the 3DS games, that certain things are changing that I'm not too big on. I was still able to see the positives of those 3D games in the 3DS as like, okay, that's cool. Okay, that's cool. You know, like it's not what I grew up with, or it's not what I would have preferred, but there's still a lot to appreciate about it. And so I think similarly, if you're an old school Pokemon fan, it'll also still help you appreciate what's going on with the series now. Like maybe the games and the gameplay itself is like never going to be what you want anymore. Like or maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe they'll make your dream like open world, amazing Pokemon game. I mean, I know Legends Arceus is like probably the first thing I'll try when I get a Switch. That seemed to be pretty popular. But just logistically and like I think in terms of what they are up against, which is to say that Pokemon is a huge franchise that has to appeal to like a gazillion demographics. It seems like it's kind of an impossible task logistically and creatively. So you can still get, I think, a little bit of that old energy that you grew up with through the fan hacking community. And it's a lot of fun. It's it's always free in theory, because I mean, you can't profit off a fan hack. And I think it would give you just an overall like appreciation for where the series is headed in, the direction it's going. I mean, me, myself, I may have not played the newer games, but I still know that the design team, for example, is on fire, and I still look forward to seeing the new Pokemon that they introduce every generation. But I think that the games and the series really in general moving forward, if you just find yourself being very negative and like just not in love with the series anymore, maybe it could just be a sign that it's like a little bit of like, maybe it's time not necessarily to move on, but just kind of like you watch it from a distance respectfully, you know, and you're able to keep your peace about it. And you're able to find out, I think, like, hey, that's still pretty cool, you know? I think last point here is I think like the wild areas in the newer games are a good example where like it's not perfect, but it's like something that people have always requested in a game, and it's neat to see. It's neat to see at the very least, like this could be an early version of what a dream Pokemon game could look like. And I think it's just going to be a very bumpy road, especially if, since it doesn't seem like the development times have changed too much. The cycle is still every 2 to 3 years. So in the time it takes Gamefreak to like slowly inch their way towards like the next thing for Pokemon, towards like, okay, like this isn't just missed opportunities and wishful thinking. Like this is like what a proper big AAA Pokemon experience must feel like. While they inch towards that direction, there's plenty of place, I think, for if you're someone like me that does miss like the first few generations, 3 to 5 were my favorites. There's still plenty of places where I think you can find like some fun still. But that'll do it for this video. I think I just wanted to hopefully maybe offer a little bit of positivity. Again, I don't own any of the Switch games, so you know, you just take my opinion for what it is. But I do know that I really love the series, and getting to experience fan hacks overall meant a lot to me, and it's been blowing my mind seeing what people like this is something that I could do, you know, like a fan hack is something that I could have totally gotten involved in. So to see like a brand new community blossom in the face of like what I think is happening to most franchises nowadays, where they just get so big and have to commit so much to the machine that they become this different thing. It's cool that I'm blessed. I get to like go elsewhere, go to somewhere more niche and like its own little proper mini community within the Pokemon community to experience some of that first early gen magic. Gen 3 years for life. I'll see you guys in the next video. You're very welcome to subscribe. After all, I'm definitely down to talk more about fan hacks, more about the Pokemon series in general. This is like a brand new little channel endeavor, whatever you want to call it, that I'm taking right now. So any support would totally mean a whole lot to me. But if other than that, this is so far, I calling this channel Backseat Gaming because we record in the back of the car in parking lots. Pisces has tons of fake mon that I wish were real, both design-wise and mechanic-wise. But I'll tell you straight out, I think I'm a diehard Togepi line fan. So if you're a fellow Togepi fan, just know that you're the best.